To continue with the session, we said that the last thing was Lucy, and she was the first Homo sapien to be discovered.
بس معلش الكونكشن كان راح من عندي.
Human resources. What is evidence? What do I mean by evidence? Evidence is a proof or an indication that something happened or something is true. Okay? Historians need evidence. They look for evidence. Why? Because they ask questions. Remember, historians, they study events of the history throughout time. When you study the events, you have certain questions that show up that you need to know if it happened or not, if it's right or not. How do you know the answers? The answers show up in terms of evidence. Evidence or proof that marks up as an answer for your question. This evidence can be a piece of paper, it can be a document, it can be an artifact, or it can be a piece of fossil. Anything that they discover that can be the answer to their questions. Do you understand? Where do we get evidence from? Evidence, we get it from resources. What are the resources? We have primary resources, secondary resources, and reliable resources. Let's start with the first two that you all know. Do you remember the difference between primary and secondary? We took them last year.
Yes, teacher, it's research
like books and diaries,
newspaper.
ونيوزبيبر وماجازينز صح؟
طب can you define them?
Primary
resource?
is like information from someone who was present when the thing happened.
First hand evidence.
بالظبط
In the
كده.
event.
First hand, this is the first key term. What's the second one? يعني,
Present.
yes, present. Present A, يعني this is missing.
In the event.
Yes, at the
When the event happened.
Okay. So a primary resource, to start, is an original material that is written or created at the time of the event. When this material was done, when this material was made, it was made at the time of the event. Okay? It can be letters, tools, documents, artifacts, or even pictures. For example, a letter written from a soldier at war. A soldier is sitting during the time, for example, of World War I, and he wrote a letter to his friend or a family member. 100 years later, we discover this letter, or one of his family members show us this letter. This is a primary resource. Why? Because the soldier wrote it at the time of the event. Clear? A piece of pottery from ancient Greece, one of the vases, one of the artifacts, one of the pieces of jewelry that were made during the time of ancient Greece, but we discovered it later. Okay? One of you mentioned the Mona Lisa or the paintings. They were painted during a certain time, the Renaissance. And then people can see them throughout the years and ages. Clear? Primary resource?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Secondary resource. What do you do with the primary resource? How is it different from the primary resource? Grade 12.
It's not
Secondary
resource.
Do not read.
بتبقى بعد ما الحاجة حصلت.
during the
Is
event.
the primary resource?
It wasn't, obviously it wasn't written, yes, at the time of the event. But how do we create a secondary resource?
And it may be biased, like because sometimes people say their opinion about the event.
Say their opinion about an event. لا.
زي newspaper مثلا.
Newspapers, do
gather
they say their
information.
opinion about the event, or do they state the facts in a twisted way?
They state the fact in a
They
twisted
state the
way,
facts
but,
that they know.
Okay.
They gather information from the primary source.
Yes. Okay. Saying their opinion, this is partially correct. Okay. Secondary resource One second. Secondary resource. We analyze the primary resource. We take the letter that belongs to the soldier, we read it, and we try to
Summary is
analyze and understand what happens during the time of the war. Okay, we take the part of the artifact from that was discovered during the Greek times, and we start looking at the patterns, we start looking at the drawings, we start looking at the material, and we analyze, and we do not say our opinion, we say what we see. So it's written after an event, and the author is relying on another information to write about the event. We do not state our opinions. We only state the facts that we see. Okay?
I have a question.
Yes.
Like, for example, if someone who's a Jew and writing a biography of Anne Frank, he may be sympathizing with her because he's actually a
This
Jew.
is a piece of writing. This is not a secondary resource. If a Jew is going to write a secondary resource or a biography about Anne Frank, whether he likes it or not, he has to state the facts. He will state that they did this, and that, and the Germans did this, and that, without saying that this is unfair. Do you understand?
Yes. Okay.
So whether it's a Jew, whether it's a Muslim, whether it's a Nazi who is writing a biography of Anne Frank, if you're writing a biography, it's a must. It's a rule that you do not include your opinion. You only state what happens or what happened to Anne Frank and her family. Using words, using sentences, you put all the information together. Information that's historical, information that's real. Any other opinions, you can include it later on in another piece of paper about the biography. Like, for example, your opinion of the biography. Do you understand?
Yes. Yes.
So in secondary resources, we do not include our opinions. This moves us to, okay, not this one. This moves us to this part, reliable sources. Myrna, were you the one who said they put their opinion? Was it you? Because okay.
Yes, I said they may be biased.
Yes, exactly. When we put our opinions in secondary resources, it's no longer a reliable source. A reliable source, it's a source that we can trust. It has true facts, true dates, true pictures, things that happened. Okay? When we put our opinions in secondary sources, whether it's our opinion in an event that happened or taking a picture, for example, of the Mona Lisa in a certain angle, and we say that there's a certain defect in the picture. This is our opinion. Okay? This is all biased. So we turn from reliable sources to bias. Reliable source, it's a trusted source. We do not state our opinions, we do not play with the facts. We take things that we have collected over time and places, and we put them in one source for people to see. Whether it's a magazine, whether it's an article, whether it's a newspaper, whether it's a book. Do you understand?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you all get primary, secondary, and reliable?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We are allowed to state our point of view about events from the secondary and primary resources, but in different pieces. Just like I told Myrna, if I'm writing a book about Anne Frank, I can write an article saying my opinion of what happened. I can go and have an interview saying my opinion of what happened, but I cannot add it to the secondary resource. Okay? This is a point of view, your general attitude about people or life, but you do not add it to your resources. Do you understand?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Once you do
Yeah.
this, once you add your point of view to the secondary resources, it's no longer a reliable source, it becomes a biased resource. Okay? It's unreasoned, it's emotional, and it's judgmental about people or events. Just like Myrna stated, if a Jew is going to say their opinion or point of view about Anne Frank, they will have different opinions, different point of views, different words to describe the situation than if a Nazi said his opinion about what happened. We cannot trust this person, we cannot trust that person because they are biased. They are based on emotional, religion, judgmental, and unreasoned. It's not based on facts only. They're not stating the events, they are saying the events from their side, from their point of view. Is it understood?
Yes.
Yes.
So do you understand all these terms clearly?
Yes.
Yes.
I get you a piece of writing, a paragraph, okay? And I ask you to figure out if it's a primary resource or a secondary resource, or is it biased? Can you do so?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
How will you know the difference? I get you a paragraph, you read it, and you tell me which one of the three. How will you know?
If it's autobiography,
How will you know? I
it
need you
must
to
be.
tell me what are the words that are used. How will you know that it's primary? How will you know that it's secondary? How will you know that it's biased?
If it states something that says it was at the time of the event, then it's primary. If someone who's not at the event, then secondary. If someone's
Someone
stating
saying his
opinion,
opinions,
then
then
it's
it's biased.
unreliable and biased.
Right, let me state this clear. If you read a paragraph and it says I, we, this happened at the day of, we saw, it was a disaster, it says emotions, and it uses the first pronouns, which is I and we and us, this is primary. This is someone stating things that happened at the event. Okay? If
Okay.
the paragraph says that, says the name of the person or the name of the event, for example, it was the year blah blah blah. The city was so and so. People were. It's as if you're describing a place. You're looking from above, outside the picture. This is a secondary resource. Okay.
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 Now, how do we differentiate between a secondary resource and a biased resource? We have two paragraphs. Let's, for example, state the Chernobyl disaster. Okay, one talks about Chernobyl. It's the location, the nuclear plant, what happened, time, dates, a clear paragraph. The other one says that people were not responding, the people who were working inside the plant were asleep, this wasn't supposed to happen, and you see words that describe certain point of views between the dates and the locations and the names, then this is a biased paragraph. This is a paragraph that states the opinion of what happened, not facts. Do you get it?
Yes.
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 Yes,
Yes, A.
get it.
You get it? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So we finished primary, secondary. Now, why do we use primary and secondary resources? Remember when we said that historians use them because they need to collect evidence. And why do we collect evidence? Because when we study history, we get certain questions in our mind, right? And these resources are the answers of the questions. So what are these questions? What happened? When did it happen? Why did it happen? And why is this event important to understand? If we're discussing, for example, Chernobyl, the first question is what happened? What is the Chernobyl disaster? So you start looking from the primary and secondary resources about what happened. What is this? When did it happen? Time frame, okay? Date, month, year, place. Why did this event happen? Here, this is the place where you start looking for secondary resources. You need to know why did this event happen. You start looking for 1, 2, 10 resources so you can find all the facts to know why did this event happen. The last question is, after you're done with all the primary and secondary resources, you need to analyze why is this event important to understand. Chernobyl disaster, after it happened, after all of the agreements and peace treaties and trials and everything, we discovered that it's very important to keep the power plant under certain temperatures. It has to be regulated over periods of time. There has to be a lot of security. So we understand why, when this event happened, why is it important to do certain actions. So is it clear? The questions that we ask ourselves when we study history, why we
Yes.
ask them? To get
Yes.
evidence. How do we get evidence? Using primary and secondary resources. What are primary and secondary resources, and how do we collect them without being biased? Is this all clear
Yes.
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 for everyone? Okay. Point of view. Now, when we go to point of view, you have to add your point of view to the resources. If you need to add your point of view about Chernobyl or about Anne Frank and the time frame of which it happened, you have to do research. To start with, when you do research, you choose your topic. You choose the topic that you want to add your opinion to. After you choose the topic, you start writing down questions. Questions that are kind of related to these. What happened, when, where, why. You start writing side questions to yourself so you can find the answers to it. And then you start to gather the research materials. This is a repetition of what we said, but we're summing it up. You get information from the primary resource, you analyze and you use secondary resource, you take notes combining the primary and secondary resources together, and finally, you make a conclusion. This conclusion, you put your questions, you put the answer to your questions, you read them all together, and you analyze after reading, you see what happened. You read the facts, and it stirs up inside of you your point of view. After you read, you start saying, was this right? Was this wrong? Could it have been changed or manipulated, or could we stop it? So you start making inferences and interpretations. After all of this, you start writing your research. You start writing the event from zero, from day one. You state what happened in the event, and you add to it your opinion. This is the only piece of essay where you're allowed to add your opinion in a conclusion paragraph about what happened. After you're done with your introduction, your body, and your conclusion, the most important thing to do is you need to put your credentials and your sightings. This is a research. This is about history. This is about people and events that happened. So you have to include the websites, the books, any resources that have been used. A side note to you, if it says .gov, it means this site or this resource is related to the government. If it says edu, this resource is related to the educational part. And if it says org, it's usually a business part, a profit or a non-profit organization. Research, how to add point of views, relating it to primary and secondary resources. Is it clear?
Yes.
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 I know you all know how to make a research, but this part was related to primary, secondary, and point of view. So if I ask you to write a research using primary and secondary resources about a certain topic and adding your point of view, can you do that?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you
Yes,
all
we
know how
add
to do that?
the point of view we added to the conclusion only.
Yes, ما هو introduction is usually an introduction about the event or about the general topic. For example, if you're talking about Anne Frank, then your introduction is going to be about wars, about, for example, how do we treat people, about camps. And then in the body, you list all the facts, the notes that you got from your primary and secondary resources. In your conclusion, you start adding to these facts your opinion. Was it right? Was it wrong? Even if, for example, are the Jews good? Are the Jews bad? Do you have to treat people according to religion or races? Was the Nazis' idea of depleting people because they think that the Dutch and the Germans, they're better, was it right or wrong? You state all of this in the conclusion. And then at the very end, you have an extra page for your citings, your credentials, all the books or the papers or the websites that you read or took information from. Clear?
Okay.
Yes?
Yes.
Everyone, is it all clear?
Yes.
Miss,
Yes.
when is this due?
It's not due. I will ask you to do it probably يعني sometime next week. You will have...
مش
No, not for today. I'm asking the idea. Is it clear?
Yes, yes.
You will probably
Yes,
have
it's
it over the weekend. يعني we'll discuss the weekly assignment on Thursday.
Okay, طيب.
Okay?
Yes.
Is it clear for everyone?
Yes.
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 Just to revise what we said, avoid being biased in anything that does not need your opinion. We're not talking about the research, we're talking about secondary resource. Bias is unreasoned emotional judgment about people or events. You state your opinion. Now, bias and plagiarism, these two, one of them is in opinions and the other one is in the research. When you are researching, you do not, of course you all know this and you still do this, you do not copy and paste from someone else's words, even if it's a secondary resource. If you want to copy it, then you have to cite it, which means you copy and you highlight, but when you paste it in your research, you have to add the quotation marks. Is it clear?
Yes.
If
Yes.
you need
Yes.
to copy word for
Yes.
word, then you will copy this paragraph, for example, from this book, word for word. You will put your quotation marks and you will write the name of the book or the article or the newspaper that you got it from. This is allowed. But to copy and paste and include it in your research, this is called plagiarism and this is not allowed. Okay? Is it clear?
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
We finished today's session. I will upload the PowerPoint tonight, hopefully. If you have any questions, try to reread the PowerPoint. If you have any questions, you have until Wednesday so we can start our weekly assignment. We will discuss our weekly assignment on Wednesday. Tomorrow I will give you a set of questions about this whole PowerPoint and then we're done because Thursday we don't have any sessions.
Miss Manna, will you upload the PowerPoint on the SMS or not?
Yes, same as we did last year. SMS, you will find 2020 grade 12H and grade 12S. History and sociology. Inside,
Okay.
you will find PowerPoint and videos, and later on assignments. Okay? Just like last year.
Okay.
So as soon as I upload it, the PowerPoint, I will let you know whether it's on the school page or texting one of you.
Okay.
Thank you, Miss.
Okay.
Thank you, Miss.
ماشي يا مس.
Bye bye.
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 Bye.